The sound of handcuffs clicking shut is unmistakable, cold, metallic, and final. It echoed through the first-class cabin of Flight 402, silencing the champagne chatter instantly. The woman in the hoodie wasn't screaming. She was terrifyingly silent. Captain Richard Sterling thought he was removing a fraudster, a young black woman he assumed had stolen a seat meant for a senator. He grabbed the intercom, his voice dripping with arrogance, and made an announcement that would be played in courtrooms and boardrooms for years to come. He didn't know he had just handcuffed Serafina Dubois, the sole heir to the Dubois media empire. And he certainly didn't know that by the time the plane landed, he wouldn't just be unemployed. He would be the most hated man in America. This is the story of how arrogance met an unstoppable force and the brutal karma that followed. The air inside the first-class cabin of Royal Horizon Airlines, Flight 402, smelled of expensive leather and fresh orchids. It was the kind of atmosphere designed to make you forget you were inside a metal tube hurtling through the stratosphere. Serafina Dubois adjusted the noise-cancelling headphones over her ears, sinking deeper into the plush velvet of Seat 1A. She pulled the hood of her oversized slate-gray sweatshirt further down. To the untrained eye, she looked like a college student flying home on a budget, perhaps lucky enough to snag an upgrade. The sweatshirt was baggy, her leggings were plain black, and her hair was pulled back in a messy bun. Clear's throat. But the details told a different story. The sweatshirt was vintage Balenciaga, costing more than most people's rent. The messy bun was held in place by a clip inlaid with black diamonds, and on her wrist, barely visible as she tapped away on her tablet, sat a Patek Philippe Nautilus, a timepiece so rare you had to know the CEO to even get on the waiting list. Serafina knew the CEO. In fact, her father, Reginald Dubois, had played golf with him the previous Sunday. She wasn't trying to hide her wealth, nor was she trying to flaunt it. She was simply tired. She had just spent 3 weeks in Tokyo, closing a merger for her father's conglomerate, Dubois Global. She just wanted to sleep until the plane touched down in Zurich. "Excuse me, miss." The voice was sharp, laced with a tone that Serafina had heard 1,000 times before. It was the tone of someone who had already decided you didn't belong. Serafina slid one ear cup back. A flight attendant was looming over her. Her name tag read, Brenda. She had the tight, forced smile of someone who managed customer service by barely suppressing her rage. "Yes?" Serafina asked, her voice calm. "I need to see your boarding pass again," Brenda said, extending a manicured hand. She didn't say, "Please." Serafina sighed, unlocking her phone and bringing up the QR code. "I already scanned it at the gate, and when I boarded, Brenda." "Is there a problem?" Brenda snatched the phone from Serafina's hand, a violation of personal space that made Serafina's jaw tighten. Brenda squinted at the screen. Clear's throat. Then at her manifest. Then back at Serafina. "This doesn't look right," Brenda muttered. "The system shows Seat 1A is reserved Clear's throat for a Mr. Sterling, a VIP." "Mr. Sterling?" Serafina frowned. "I booked this seat 3 months ago. Full fare. Check the confirmation number." Brenda handed the phone back with a dismissive flick of her wrist. "There's obviously been a glitch. We have a Platinum Key member, Mr. Arthur Sterling, the senator's son, who needs this seat. His booking is hard-coded into the manifest." "That sounds like an airline problem, not a me problem," Serafina said, putting her headphones back on. "I'm not moving." Brenda's face flushed a dangerous shade of crimson. She tapped Serafina on the shoulder, hard. "Miss, you don't understand. Economy is full. I can't move you back there. You need to deplane. We can rebook you on the flight tomorrow morning." Serafina removed the headphones completely this time. The cabin had gone quiet. A man in seat 2B, wearing a suit that cost less than Serafina's watch, was watching with amusement over the top of his Wall Street Journal. "Deplane? Clear's throat," Serafina repeated, her voice dropping an octave. "I am a paying customer. I have a valid ticket. I have critical meetings in Zurich. I am not leaving this plane because your system double-booked a politician's kid. Listen to me, Brenda hissed, leaning in close. We don't have time for this. You clearly worked the system or used some employee buddy pass to snag a seat you can't afford. But when real VIPs show up, the free riders get bumped. Grab your bag. Free rider? Serafina let out a short, incredulous laugh. Brenda, call the captain now. I don't need to bother Captain Sterling with this, Brenda snapped. Captain Sterling? Serafina raised an eyebrow. Is the pilot related to the passenger you're trying to give my seat to? Brenda froze. It is, Serafina said, pulling out her phone and hitting record. If the pilot is kicking a paying passenger off the plane to give a first-class seat to his relative, that's a violation of FAA regulations and company policy. I'd love to get that on the record. Put that phone away, Brenda shrieked. Suddenly, the cockpit door burst open. Captain Richard Sterling stepped out. He was a large man, silver-haired, with the broad shoulders of a former military pilot and the heavy gut of a man who enjoyed too many steak dinners. He wore his 4 stripes like a crown. He was 3 months away from retirement, a legend in his own mind, and he had zero patience for delays. What in the hell is going on back here? His voice boomed, filling the small cabin. Captain, Brenda said, her voice turning instantly victimized. This passenger is refusing to vacate the seat for the VIP, and she's filming me. She's being belligerent. Captain Sterling's eyes landed on Serafina. He didn't see the Patek Philippe. He didn't see the tired business executive. He saw a young black woman in a hoodie, holding a phone, challenging his authority. He stepped forward, towering over her seat. Young lady, Sterling growled. Turn that camera off. I have the right to document this interaction, Serafina said, the camera steady in her hand. Your flight attendant is trying to remove me because of a nepotism conflict involving your relative. Sterling's face turned purple. It was true, of course. Arthur Sterling was his nephew, a spoiled brat who had missed his connection and called Uncle Richard to fix it. But Captain Sterling was not used to being called out. Certainly not by someone who looked like Serafina. You are disrupting a federal flight crew, Sterling barked. That is a felony. Now, you can walk off this plane on your own 2 feet, or I can have the Port Authority drag you off. But either way, you are not flying on my aircraft. I am not disrupting anything, Serafina said, her voice steely. I am sitting in the seat I paid $42,000 for. $42,000? Sterling scoffed, looking at her hoodie. Don't lie to me. You probably used a stolen credit card or a hacked miles account. We see it all the time with your type. The cabin gasped. The racial coding was clumsy, brutal, and undeniable. My type? Serafina asked softly. Fraudsters, Sterling said, doubling down. Now get out. No, Serafina said. Sterling turned to Brenda. Call the police. Tell them we have a level 3 security threat. Passenger is hostile and refusing crew instructions. As Brenda rushed to the interphone, Serafina looked into the camera lens of her phone, then panned up to Sterling's face. Captain Richard Sterling, she said clearly, remember this moment, because you just made the biggest mistake of your life. 10 minutes later, the jet bridge rumbled with the heavy footsteps of authority. 2 Port Authority officers squeezed into the first-class cabin. They looked weary, the kind of exhaustion that comes from dealing with drunk tourists and lost luggage all day. They saw Captain Sterling standing with his arms crossed, blocking the aisle, and Serafina sitting calmly in 1A, typing on her phone. What's the problem, Captain? Clear's throat, the older officer asked. She's trespassing, Sterling lied smoothly. She boarded illegally, refused to show a valid ticket when challenged, and then became aggressive with the flight crew. I want her off, and I want her pressed with charges for interfering with a flight crew. The officer looked at Serafina. She didn't look aggressive. She looked bored. Ma'am, the officer asked, Is this true? No, Serafina said. I have my ticket right here. I am a Global Services member. The captain is trying to give my seat to his nephew, Arthur Sterling, who is currently standing by the galley, waiting for me to leave. She pointed. Indeed, a young man in a tacky designer blazer was hovering near the galley curtain, looking nervous. The officer hesitated. Captain, if she has a ticket. I am the pilot in command. Sterling roared, losing his temper. Under federal law, the pilot's word was final, regarding safety and security. If he said she was a threat, the police had to treat her as one until proven otherwise. I have deemed her a security risk. If you don't remove her, I'm filing a report against your precinct for failing to secure a commercial aircraft. The officers sighed. They knew the drill. The captain was God in the sky. Ma'am, you have to come with us, the officer said apologetically. You can sort it out with the airline on the ground, but you can't stay here. Serafina stood up. She was tall, nearly eye to eye with Sterling. She smoothed out her hoodie. Fine, she clears throat, said. I'll go, but I'm not walking. Excuse me? Sterling snapped. If you are accusing me of being a criminal threat, Serafina said, her voice projecting to the back of the cabin, then treat me like one. Handcuff me, because if I walk off voluntarily, it implies I accept your authority. I do not. If you want me off, you take me off in chains. It was a dare, a bluff. She was betting Sterling would back down to avoid the optics. She lost the bet. Cuff her, Sterling ordered the officers. She's resisting. The officers looked uncomfortable, but Sterling was insistent. Do it, or I call the TSA Federal Security Director. The cold steel clicked around Serafina's wrists. The moment the cuffs locked, a shift occurred in the cabin. The man in 2B wasn't smiling anymore. He had his phone out, recording. A woman in 3A was doing the same. This is insane, someone muttered. Serafina didn't struggle. She held her head high, her posture regal despite the restraints. As the officers led her into the aisle, she stopped right in front of Captain Sterling. She leaned in, her voice a whisper that only he could hear. Call the CEO, Captain. His name is Jonathan. Tell him Serafina Dubois says hello. Sterling let out a barking laugh. Dubois? Like the media family? Yeah, right. And I'm the King of England. Get her out of here. The officers marched her out. It was a long walk. They had to pass through the galley, past the smirking nephew, Arthur Sterling, who avoided her gaze. And then, because the jet bridge was jammed, they had to exit via the rear door. This meant Serafina was marched down the entire length of the plane. 200 pairs of eyes watched. Economy passengers craned their necks. What did she do? Is she a terrorist? She looks like a kid. Serafina locked eyes with every person filming her. She wanted them to see. She wanted the world to see. When they finally reached the tarmac, the humid New York air hit her face. A police cruiser was waiting. Back on the plane, the atmosphere was tense. Passengers were whispering, showing each other the videos they had captured. Sterling knew he had to regain control of the narrative. He was the captain. He needed to project strength. He strode into the cockpit, sat in the left seat, and grabbed the public address system handset. Usually, pilots give a mumbled speech about weather and altitude, but Sterling was running on adrenaline and ego. He wanted to shame the girl one last time, to justify his actions to the passengers who were undoubtedly judging him. He keyed the mic. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. Sterling's voice boomed through the speakers. My apologies for the delay. We had a security situation involving a passenger who attempted to defraud the airline and became belligerent with the crew. At Royal Horizon, we have a zero-tolerance policy for scammers and thugs who think they can disrupt law-abiding citizens. He paused, letting the words sink in. We've removed the threat and handed her over to the authorities where she belongs. We'll be in the air shortly. Thank you for choosing Royal Horizon, where safety and integrity come first. He clicked off the mic, feeling a surge of satisfaction. He turned to his co-pilot, a younger man named David, who was staring at him with wide, horrified eyes. "What?" Sterling asked. "Captain," David whispered, pointing at his iPad. He had the passenger manifest open. He had done what Sterling hadn't. He had clicked on the passenger's profile details. Did you check who she was? Some nobody using a fake name, probably." Sterling grunted, starting the engine startup sequence. "Captain," David said, his voice trembling. "Her name is Serafina Dubois. Her father is Reginald Dubois." Sterling froze. His hand hovered over the throttles. "The guy who owns the news networks?" "No, Captain," David said, swallowing hard. "The guy who owns the private equity firm that just bought Royal Horizon Airlines yesterday. The memo came out this morning." Sterling's blood ran cold. The cockpit suddenly felt very, very small. "She's not just a passenger, Captain," David continued, reading from the screen. "She's listed as a board observer. She's technically our boss." Down on the tarmac, inside the back of the police cruiser, Serafina's phone buzzed. Her handcuffs had been removed the moment the officers ran her ID and realized who she was. She looked at the text message. It was from Jonathan, the CEO of the airline. "Serafina, I just saw a live stream from a passenger on Flight 402. Are you in handcuffs? Call me immediately." Serafina didn't call. Instead, she opened Twitter. The hashtag number Boycott Royal Horizon was already trending. The video of Sterling's announcement, calling the owner's daughter a thug, had 50,000 views and was climbing by the second. Serafina smiled, a cold, dangerous smile. She typed a simple reply to the CEO. "Don't worry, Jonathan. I'm handling it. But you might want to find a new pilot for the return leg. This one isn't going to make it." The holding room at JFK's Terminal 4 was a stark contrast to the first-class cabin. Instead of orchids and leather, there was linoleum and the low, buzzing hum of a dying fluorescent light. Serafina sat on a metal bench, her hands resting on her knees. The handcuffs were gone, removed the second the Port Authority officers had scanned her ID, and the computer flagged her not as a criminal, but as a high-value individual with top-tier security clearance due to her father's defense contracts. Officer Miller, the younger, of the two who had escorted her off the plane, walked back into the room. He looked pale. He was holding a cup of lukewarm water, his hand shaking slightly. "Miss Dubois," Miller said, his voice cracking. "Here's your water. Look, the lieutenant is on his way down. There's been a misunderstanding." "There hasn't been a misunderstanding, Officer Miller," Serafina said, accepting the cup but not drinking. "There has been a false arrest, an illegal detainment, and a violation of my civil rights initiated by a Royal Horizon employee. You just happened to be the weapon he used." Miller winced. "We were acting on the captain's authority, under maritime and aviation law." "I know the law," Serafina cut him off. "I graduated summa cum laude from Harvard Law before I took over the European division of my father's company. I know that the captain has authority regarding safety, but once I was off that plane and compliant, your authority superseded his, and yet you dragged me through the terminal in cuffs." The door opened. Lieutenant Davis, a man with a thick mustache and a look of absolute dread, entered the room, clear his throat. He wasn't holding a ticket book. He was holding a cell phone that was blowing up with notifications. "Miss Dubois," Davis said, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I am so sorry. We've verified your ticket. It's solid. The airline has admitted, off the record, that the seat was yours. We are going to expunge the arrest record immediately. You're free to go. We can have a car take you to a private lounge while we sort out another flight." He gestured to the open door, expecting her to rush out. Serafina didn't move. "No," she said. Davis blinked. "Excuse me?" "I said no," Serafina repeated calmly. "You don't get to expunge this." I want the arrest report filed. I want the mugshot taken. I want the paperwork processed. Miss Dubois, Davis said, confused. Why would you want a record? Because, Sarafina said, standing up and smoothing her Balenciaga hoodie. If you wipe the record, it's like it never happened. It becomes a misunderstanding. But if there is an official arrest record, then there is a paper trail. And if there is a paper trail, I can sue the Port Authority, the City of New York, and Royal Horizon Airlines for defamation and wrongful imprisonment. She took a step closer to the lieutenant. Captain Sterling announced to 200 people that I was a criminal. He destroyed my reputation. Now I'm going to use the legal system to destroy his life. Process me, Lieutenant, or I'll add obstruction of justice to the lawsuit I'm filing against you personally. Davis stared at her. He realized then that the girl in the hoodie was more dangerous than any criminal he had locked up in 20 years. Process her, Davis whispered to Miller, defeated. While they typed up the report, Sarafina pulled out her phone. The internet was moving faster than the legal system ever could. The video was everywhere. TikTok, Twitter, CNN. Someone in row 3 had captured the entire interaction. The caption read, "Pilot kicks off black girl for his nephew. Calls her a thug. Turns out she owns the airline." The comments were a landslide of fury. At Flyboy99, "I'm a pilot. Sterling just violated about 6 ethical codes. He's done." At Justice Now, "Did you see his face?" The arrogance. Number Fire Sterling at Wall Street Watcher. "Royal Horizon stock is down 4% in after-hours trading. This is a PR nuke." Sarafina finally made the call she had been waiting to make. She dialed a number saved simply as Dad. It rang once. "Sarafina." Reginald Dubois' voice came through. It was deep, calm, and Clear's throat, terrifyingly composed. "I am looking at a video of my daughter in handcuffs. Tell me you didn't assault anyone." "I sat in my seat, Dad. I was polite. I quoted the regulations." "Good," Reginald said. "And the pilot?" "Captain Richard Sterling. He's currently flying Flight 402 to Zurich. He thinks he won." "Sterling." Reginald repeated the name, tasting it. "I'm looking at his personnel file now. He's due to retire in October with a full pension, a golden parachute. He called me a fraudster on the P.A. system." There was a silence on the line. A long, heavy silence that usually preceded a corporate execution. "He won't be retiring," Reginald said softly. "And he won't be landing in Zurich as a captain. He'll be landing as a liability. Stay at the precinct, sweetheart. Jonathan, the CEO, is coming to pick you up personally. I've already sent the jet to take you to Zurich. You need to be there when Sterling lands." "Why?" Sarafina asked. "Because," Reginald said, "I want him to look you in the eye when I take his wings." Royal Horizon's headquarters in downtown Manhattan was a fortress of glass and steel designed to project power. But inside the boardroom, on the 40th floor, the atmosphere was one of pure panic. Jonathan Vance, the CEO of Royal Horizon, was sweating through his Italian suit. He sat at the head of a mahogany table, surrounded by 12 ashen-faced board members. On the massive screen at the end of the room was a live video feed of Reginald Dubois. He was sitting in his study in Chicago, wearing a smoking jacket, holding a glass of scotch. He looked relaxed, which terrified everyone in the room. "Reginald?" Jonathan started, his voice trembling. "We are issuing a public apology as we speak. We've offered Sarafina a full refund and 10 million miles." "Stop," Reginald said. He didn't shout. He just dropped the word like a gavel. The room went dead silent. "Jonathan," Reginald continued, swirling his drink, "do you know why my private equity firm acquired Royal Horizon yesterday? Because of our route network?" Jonathan ventured. "No. I bought it because I like efficiency," Reginald said. "And what I saw today was the opposite of efficiency. I saw a pilot who thinks he owns the plane. I saw a flight attendant who profiles customers based on their attire, and I saw a reservation system that allows a platinum member to bump a paying customer because of a hard-coded nepotism algorithm. Reginald took a sip. Arthur Sterling, the nephew. I had my team look into him. Did you know this is the third time Captain Sterling has bumped a paying passenger to get his nephew a free upgrade? He did it in London in 2019 and in Dubai in 2021. Jonathan went pale. I wasn't aware. That is the problem, Jonathan, Reginald snapped. You aren't aware. You're the CEO, and you don't know that your senior captains are treating your fleet like a family taxi service. You let a culture of arrogance fester, and today it bit you. The stock is down 12%, a board member whispered, looking at his tablet. Advertisers are pulling out, Reginald nodded. The internet hates bullies, Jonathan, and right now Royal Horizon is the biggest bully in the sky. An apology won't fix this. Miles won't fix this. What do you want, Reginald? Jonathan asked, loosening his tie. We'll do anything. I want blood, Reginald said simply. He leaned into the camera. Here is what is going to happen. You're not going to fire Captain Sterling privately. You are not going to let him resign. You are going to make an example of him. How? Flight 402 lands in Zurich in 6 hours, Reginald said. I want the Swiss police waiting at the gate, not for Sarafina, but for Sterling. You are going to press charges against him for embezzlement, the theft of company resources for personal gain regarding his nephew's seat. It's a stretch, but it will hold him. Press charges against our own pilot? The legal counsel spoke up. The union will eat us alive. Let them try, Reginald smiled. I'll release the internal emails I just found where Sterling uses racial slurs to describe passengers to his co-pilots. Oh yes, we found those too. If the union defends him, they go down with him. The room gasped. Secondly, Reginald continued. Arthur Sterling, the nephew. He's on the plane right now, probably drinking the champagne my daughter paid for. When he lands, I want him banned for life. Banned from Royal Horizon and banned from every partner airline in our alliance. He walks home. Done, Jonathan said immediately. And finally, Reginald said, setting his glass down, I want Sarafina reinstated as the face of this recovery. You are going to record a joint statement with her. She isn't just the victim. She's the hero who exposed the rot. You will announce that she is leading the new Customer Dignity Task Force. She's 24, a board member objected. She's the owner, Reginald corrected him coldly. And she has more integrity in her little finger than this entire board has in its collective body. Reginald looked at his watch. You have 6 hours until that plane touches down in Zurich. My jet is taking Sarafina there now. If Sterling walks off that plane a free man, Jonathan, you're fired. If the press doesn't have a statement condemning Sterling's racism before wheels down, you're fired. Reginald paused for effect. Do I make myself clear? Crystal, Jonathan whispered. The screen went black. Jonathan looked around the silent boardroom. Well, you heard the man. Get legal on the phone, get PR on the phone, and get me the Zurich Airport police chief. We have a pilot to arrest. High above the Atlantic, the cockpit of Flight 402 was a sanctuary of ignorance. Captain Richard Sterling adjusted the trim on the autopilot, leaning back in his sheepskin-covered seat. He felt good. The turbulence over the ocean had been minimal. The tailwind was strong, and they were scheduled to land in Zurich 20 minutes early. He glanced at his co-pilot, David. The young man had been exceptionally quiet for the last 6 hours. He hadn't laughed at Sterling's jokes, hadn't engaged in the usual banter about retirement plans, and kept checking the ACARS, Aircraft Communications Addressing and Reporting System messages, with a nervous twitch. Lighten up, kid, Sterling chuckled, taking a sip of coffee. We're almost there. Smooth sailing. Once we land, I'm going to hit the hotel bar. You should join me. Arthur, my nephew, Knows the best spots in Zurich. David didn't look up from the instrument panel. I think I'm just going to head straight to my room, Captain. Suit yourself, Sterling grunted. You millennials have no stamina. Sterling didn't know that David had received a text message via the cockpit's private Wi-Fi link 4 hours ago. It was a mass memo from the chief pilot's office to all flight crew. The subject line was simply, I mediate termination protocol. David knew exactly what was waiting for Sterling on the ground. He was just praying the old man didn't check his own email. Zurich approach. This is Royal Horizon, 402 descending through flight level 180, request runway 14. Sterling radioed in, his voice the practiced, smooth baritone he was famous for. Usually, the response from Swiss air traffic control was efficient and robotic. Cleared to land. Taxi to gate E43. Today, the pause was longer than usual. Royal Horizon 402. This is Zurich Tower. The controller's voice came back, clipped and cold. Do not proceed to Terminal E. You are instructed to taxi to remote stand 82 immediately upon landing. Do not, I repeat, do not approach the gate. Sterling frowned, toggling the mic. Tower, confirm remote stand 82. We have VIPs on board. Gate E43 is our slot. Why are we being parked in the cargo area? Royal Horizon 402. Follow instructions or divert. The controller snapped. Ground authorities awaiting. Sterling slammed the handset down. Unbelievable. Probably a sanitation check or some customs nonsense. He turned to the intercom to address the passengers. Ladies and gentlemen, we're beginning our final descent. We've been assigned a remote parking spot due to congestion at the terminal. We'll have buses to take you to the terminal. Apologies for the inconvenience. In the first-class cabin, Arthur Sterling stretched his legs in seat 1A. He had enjoyed the flight immensely. He had drunk 3 glasses of Dom Perignon, watched 2 movies, and flirted with Brenda, the flight attendant who had helped kick that troublemaker off. He felt powerful. He was a Sterling. The world bent for him. He looked out the window as the Swiss Alps came into view, jagged and white against the blue sky. He didn't notice that as the plane touched down, the runway seemed unusually empty. He didn't notice the convoy of black SUVs racing across the tarmac, parallel to the landing gear. The wheels screeched against the concrete. The reverse thrusters roared. "Welcome to Zurich!" Brenda's voice wavered over the P. As the plane taxied away from the luxury terminal and toward the desolate cargo hangars, Sterling felt a prickle of unease. He looked out the left window. "What is that?" he muttered. Waiting at remote stand, 82 wasn't a fuel truck or a baggage handler. It was a phalanx of police cars, the Swiss Kantonspolizei. Their blue lights were flashing silently, and standing in front of them, looking like a sleek black arrow against the grey concrete, was a Gulfstream G650 jet. The tail number was N1DUB. Sterling squinted. He recognized that tail number. It belonged to the Dubois corporate fleet. "Why is the owner's jet here?" Sterling asked, a lump forming in his throat. David finally looked at him. His face was pale, but his eyes were hard. "I think they're here to meet you, Captain." The engines whined down into silence. The fasten seatbelt sign dinged off, but nobody moved. Usually, this is the moment where passengers jump up to grab their bags. But outside, the scene was too terrifying. 4 police cars had boxed in the nose gear. A mobile staircase was being driven up to the forward door, but it wasn't operated by airline staff. It was being driven by a police officer. Captain Sterling stood up, his legs feeling like lead. He grabbed his hat. He needed to project authority. "I'll handle this," he told David. "Probably a security check because of that girl in New York. They need my statement." "I don't think so, Richard," David said, dropping the captain title for the first time. Sterling ignored him and threw open the cockpit door. He expected to see the chief of police. He expected to see a customs agent. Instead, Standing at the top of the mobile staircase, framed by the cold Swiss wind, was Serafina Dubois. She looked immaculate. She had changed on her private jet. Gone were the hoodie and leggings. She was now wearing a tailored white power suit that looked sharp enough to cut glass. Her hair was slicked back, and she wore sunglasses that she slowly removed as Sterling appeared. Behind her stood two massive Swiss police officers and a man in a dark suit holding a briefcase. Sterling froze. "You. How did you—" "I fly faster than you, Captain," Serafina said, her voice cutting through the silence of the open door. "My jet cruises at Mach 0.925. You were stuck at Mach 0.85. It gave me plenty of time to prepare the welcoming committee." "You can't be here," Sterling stammered, his face flushing red. "This is a restricted area. I am the pilot in command." "Clear's throat." "Not anymore." The man in the dark suit stepped forward. "Captain Sterling, I am Henri Doucet, General Counsel for Royal Horizon Europe." He extended a hand, not to shake, but to present a thick white envelope. "What is this?" Sterling stared at it. "Notice of immediate termination for cause," Henri said calmly. "Effective as of 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you are no longer an employee of Royal Horizon. You are trespassing on company property." "Termination," Sterling laughed, a desperate, manic sound. "You can't fire me. I have a union. I have 30 years of service. I kicked a disruptive passenger off my plane for safety." "No." Serafina stepped closer, entering the galley. The first-class passengers, including Arthur, were watching in stunned silence. "You kicked the owner of the airline off her own plane because you wanted to give a free seat to your nephew." She pointed a manicured finger at seat 1A. Arthur Sterling shrank back into the leather. He tried to pull the blanket up, but it was too late. Serafina's gaze pinned him like a butterfly on a board. "Arthur Sterling," Serafina said, her voice projecting to the entire cabin. "You are sitting in a seat that costs $42,000. Did you pay for it?" Arthur stammered. My uncle." He said it was fine. Clear's throat. "It's theft," Serafina said. "Corporate theft. And since you crossed international borders while committing it, it's a federal offense." She turned back to Captain Sterling. "You called me a fraudster, Richard. You announced it to the world. You ruined my reputation for exactly 3 hours. But my father, Reginald Dubois, has a very strict policy about reputation management." "Your father," Sterling whispered. The blood drained from his face as the reality finally hit him. The Dubois name wasn't just a coincidence. "He bought the airline yesterday," Serafina said, leaning in so only Sterling could hear the venom in her voice. "I am your boss, and you humiliated me." She nodded to the Swiss police. "Officers, please remove this man from my aircraft." "On what grounds?" Sterling screamed as the officers grabbed his arms. "I didn't break any laws." "Actually," Henri the lawyer interjected, opening his briefcase, "we are pressing charges for embezzlement of company assets, specifically the misappropriation of first-class inventory for family members over a period of 10 years. We audited your flight history while you were in the air, Richard. You've given Arthur $400,000 worth of free flights. That's grand larceny." The handcuffs clicked. It was the same sound Serafina had heard in New York, but this time it was sweeter. "Wait." "Arthur!" Sterling yelled as he was dragged toward the stairs. "Call the union! Call the senator!" But Arthur wasn't calling anyone. 2 more officers had boarded the plane and were marching down the aisle towards seat 1A. "Arthur Sterling?" the officer asked. "I didn't do anything," Arthur whined, standing up, spilling his champagne. "You are banned from entering Switzerland pending the investigation into fraud," the officer said. "And you are banned from Royal Horizon. You will be placed on the next economy flight back to New York, middle seat, at your own expense." "I don't have any money," Arthur cried. My uncle pays for everything. Then you'd better start walking, Serafina said coldly. As the police dragged the screaming captain down the stairs and escorted the weeping nephew out of the cabin, the passengers of Flight 402 sat in stunned silence. Serafina stood at the front of the cabin. She looked at the flight attendant, Brenda, who was trembling in the galley, pressing herself against the coffee maker, trying to be invisible. Serafina walked up to her. Brenda flinched. I was just following orders. Miss Dubois, Brenda whispered, tears streaming down her face. Please, I need this job. I have a mortgage. Serafina looked at Brenda's name tag. She remembered the smirk Brenda had worn when she called the police in New York. She remembered the way Brenda had snatched her phone. Integrity is a choice, Brenda, Serafina said softly. And you made yours. Serafina turned to the passengers. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the delay and the drama. My name is Serafina Dubois, and I am the new chairwoman of the Customer Experience Board for Royal Horizon. She paused, looking at the empty seat in 1A. We are going to make some changes around here, starting now. She turned back to the cockpit where David, the co-pilot, was staring at her with wide eyes. You, Serafina said. David, right? Yes, ma'am, David squeaked. Can you taxi this plane to the gate? Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Good, Serafina smiled. Then take us in. I have a board meeting to attend. As she walked down the stairs to her private car, she pulled out her phone. The Clear's throat video of Sterling being handcuffed on the tarmac was already trending. Karma isn't just a bitch, she thought, typing a text to her father. She's a CEO. The holding cell at the Zurich Airport police station was a desolate place, stripped of color and comfort. It smelled faintly of industrial, cleaner, and stale fear. For Captain Richard Sterling, it was a purgatory far removed from the climate-controlled, leather-scented cockpit where he had spent the last 30 years of his life playing God. He sat on the edge of a narrow, bolted-down wooden bench, his head buried in his hands. His uniform, once a symbol of unquestioned authority, now felt like a costume he had no right to wear. The 4 gold stripes on his shoulders, usually a beacon of command, seemed to mock him in the harsh, fluorescent light. His tie was undone, hanging loosely around his neck like a noose, and his cap lay upside down on the dirty floor. Across from him, huddled in the corner, sat Arthur. The young man's bravado had evaporated the moment the handcuffs clicked. He wasn't the smug VIP anymore. He was a terrified 2-year-old, realizing his uncle's credit card had finally been declined by reality. Uncle Richard, Arthur whispered, his voice trembling. They took my passport. They said, I'm a flight risk. How am I supposed to get back to the Hamptons for the weekend? Sterling slowly lifted his head. His eyes were bloodshot. He looked at his nephew, the boy he had coddled, the boy he had broken federal regulations for, the boy whose entitlement had just cost Sterling his entire existence. The Hamptons? Sterling's voice was a rasp, dry and broken. Arthur, do you have any idea what just happened? We aren't going to the Hamptons. I'm not going back to my condo in Miami. I'm not going to my retirement party next month. But you can fix this, right? Arthur pleaded. You know people. Call the union rep. Call the senator. There is no one to call, Sterling said, staring at the concrete wall. I just humiliated Serafina Dubois. Do you understand who she is? Her father doesn't just know senators, Arthur. He buys them. The heavy steel door groaned open, interrupting them. A Swiss guard stepped in, followed closely by Henri Doucet, the general counsel for Royal Horizon's European division. Henri didn't look like a lawyer who was there to help. He looked like an executioner who enjoyed his work. Henri didn't sit. He placed a sleek black briefcase on the small metal table between them and snapped the latches open. The sound echoed like a gunshot in the small room. Mr. Sterling, Henri began, his tone clinical and cold. "I am here to formally serve you with the termination papers and the initial lawsuit filing." "Lawsuit?" Sterling choked out. I can just resign. I'll take early retirement. I have 3 weeks left. Let me just bow out quietly." Henri laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. "Resign? Oh, Richard, you don't get to resign. You were terminated for cause at 12:01 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That means your pension gone, your stock options forfeited, your lifetime travel benefits revoked permanently." Sterling felt the blood drain from his face. "You can't touch my pension. I earned that over 30 years. You forfeited it when you engaged in a pattern of fraud and embezzlement," Henri said, sliding a thick stack of documents across the table. "We've been auditing your flight logs for the last 3 hours. It's fascinating reading. Do you know how many times you've upgraded Arthur here to first class, using the operational necessity override code?" Sterling didn't answer. 42 times, Henri answered for him. 42 international first-class seats at an average market value of $12,000 per seat. That is over $500,000 in stolen revenue. Richard, we are suing you for the full amount, plus damages for brand defamation. By the time the Dubois legal team is done with you, you won't just be unemployed. You will be destitute. Sterling slumped back against the cold wall. The math was undeniable. He had traded a $3 million retirement package for a single moment of arrogance. "And as for you, Arthur," Henri said, turning his gaze to the nephew, "you are banned from Royal Horizon and all Star Alliance partners for life. The airline is also filing a civil suit against you for the value of today's flight. I suggest you find a very good lawyer and a very cheap bus ticket home." Henri snapped the briefcase shut and turned to leave. "Wait," Sterling cried out, desperation cracking his voice. "Tell Serafina. Tell Miss Dubois I'm sorry. I didn't know who she was." Henri paused at the door, looking back with a mixture of pity and disgust. "That's exactly the problem, Richard," Henri said softly. "If she had been a nobody, you would have treated her like trash and slept like a baby. You're not sorry you did it. You're sorry you did it to her." The door slammed shut, sealing their fate. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, the fallout was swift and nuclear. In the Royal Horizon boardroom in New York, CEO Jonathan Vance stood before a phalanx of cameras. Next to him stood Reginald Dubois, looking calm and lethal. "We have zero tolerance for discrimination," Jonathan read from a prepared statement, sweat glistening on his forehead, effective immediately. "The captain's authority clause regarding seating assignments has been revoked. We are implementing a new oversight system monitored directly by the board." But the internet didn't care about press releases. They cared about justice. The video of Sterling's announcement calling Serafina a thug had now been viewed 40 million times. Clear's throat. The hashtag #FireSterling was trending globally, but it was quickly being replaced by #Serafina Dubois. In the comment sections, former passengers were coming forward with their own stories of Captain Sterling's bullying. The legendary pilot was being dismantled story by story, tweet by tweet, and then there was Brenda, the flight attendant who had sneered at Serafina's hoodie. She sat in her small apartment in Queens, holding a termination letter in her shaking hands. Her phone was blowing up with notifications. People had found her Instagram. They were calling her a racist, a Karen, a bully. She recorded a video, sobbing, trying to explain that she was just following protocol, just listening to the captain. She posted it to TikTok, hoping for sympathy. Serafina saw the video from the back of her chauffeured Mercedes as it wound through the streets of Zurich. She didn't feel a surge of triumph. She felt a quiet, resolved satisfaction. She didn't leave a comment. She didn't click like. She simply swiped up, moving on to the next piece of business. Her phone buzzed, Clear's throat. It was a text from her father, Reginald. The Swiss authorities have agreed to deport Sterling tomorrow. He's accepting a plea deal to avoid Swiss prison time, but he'll be facing the civil suits in New York. He is ruined completely. Serafina looked out the window at the pristine waters of Lake Zurich. She thought about the moment the handcuffs had clicked around her wrists in New York. She thought about the humiliation of walking past the other passengers, the feeling of being small, of being judged. She typed a reply. "He tried to clip my wings, Dad. He forgot I own the sky." She put her phone away. The meeting with the European investors was in 20 minutes. She checked her reflection in the rearview mirror. The hoodie was gone. The white suit was flawless. The captain had learned a brutal lesson that day, one that would echo in flight schools and boardrooms for years to come. Authority is not a license to bully, and in the modern world, you never know when the quiet passenger in seat 1A is the one holding the keys to your entire life. The story of Captain Sterling and Serafina Dubois is more than just a tale of revenge. It is a masterclass in the cost of arrogance. Sterling spent 30 years building a career, only to destroy it in 3 minutes, because he couldn't see past his own prejudices. He saw a hoodie and assumed criminal. He saw a young black woman and assumed fraud. He never stopped to think that dignity belongs to everyone, regardless of what they are wearing or who they are related to. In the end, karma didn't just hit him, it ran him over with a jet engine. He lost his fortune, his reputation, and his legacy, all because he wanted to give his nephew a free glass of champagne. What do you think? Was the punishment too harsh, or did Captain Sterling get exactly what he deserved? I'd love to hear your perspective. Would you have sued him for everything he had, or would you have let him retire in shame? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of high-altitude justice, please do me a huge favor. Smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps the algorithm share these stories with more people. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, and remember, treat everyone with respect. You never know who you're talking to.